Now. Boy.
So now we're live.
Yeah.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hello, hello.
He's
I'm
staring too
looking.
much at his bald head.
Yeah, I know. Hey, 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 hey.
It's the glare.
It's the glare.
Oh, uh, uh, yeah. So,
Welcome to the shenanigans that is 2.5 Opinions. We hope you've enjoyed our show. Goodbye, good night, and no.
wait a sec. We're not done that yet, are we? Wow, that was really nice. It worked, Anyway, yeah, this is 2.5 Opinions. I'm Frank.
I'm Yishay.
And I'm not the Rebbe. And this is the show that follows Torah with friends, which is very interesting. And I enjoy the opportunity I get to be a part of that from time to time. But this is a little bit more irreverent. Not any less irrelevant. But we focus, we try to look at the Torah portion and look at the Torah in the light of what is the Torah itself saying and what is the Jewish perspective on this. So if you find some nuances, some differences, some new challenges that you don't see in other Messianic Lamb radio shows and broadcasts, it's because we're truly trying to do our best of presenting the Jewish aspect of the Torah portion. So this is not in anathema. I shouldn't say anathema. It's incorrect. Antithesis to anything else or what you believe in what you're looking at. But this is a different opinion, and we offer it up to you as food for thought.
Yeah, the food for
Because
thought is my irreverence and not disrespect to God. Okay, it's we must have a little bit of irreverence because we can't just swallow any pill that some you know group of people or organization gives us. Oh, you must believe this way, because if you don't believe this way, then you were doomed. No, no,
but
not at
I
all.
but I was supposed to trust on that black bald guy because he gave me the red and the blue pill.
Yeah, that same thing they happened down in Jonestown. Okay, long time ago. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. All right. So we don't do that. Uh, we try to make you question within yourself, what does this mean? At least we try to, and we try to gather evidence and thoughts and opinions together. Thus, 2.5 Opinions, and come up with some good intellectual food. At least I think it's good intellectual food. So, um, so where are
It
we
should
going?
be. It should be. We flavored it with plenty of Judaism. I mean,
So where are we going? What are we going to be talking about?
I'm muted. So this
Yeah.
Torah portion is a fun one. We start out with spies, and oh, those terrible spies! It's so many times we get trapped into viewing any of the Torah portions or what my Christian friends call the Old Testament. It's old. It's worn out. We've got
It's
a new.
musty. It needs to be cleaned,
Yes,
right?
we've got a new and improved version of it. It's Covenant 2.0. But yeah, so there's their reference of our show. Um, but no, it's too many times when we read this, we look at it as, oh, those crazy, stupid Meshuggah Jews. What were they thinking? Did they not see God? What was going on with them? And we always treat it as them. And for several years now, Frank and I, and so many others, and Jesse included, we've tried to bring it into no, this is a story about us. We were there. We
Yep.
did this. We were part of this. This is where it speaks to me because of who I am and what I am because of my attachment with this. And even if you're keeping Passover, regardless of what Haggadah you're using, the whole intent is you are supposed to treat this telling of the story, telling of the Passover, as though you were there, you experienced it. This is what you did, and so we approach Torah in the same way. So we start out with these crazy Meshuggah spies. Oh my goodness, what were they doing? They go up, they go do this, and they come back, and some give a bad report, and some give a good report, and then there's some fighting going on, and it's fighting with words, and then a plague breaks out on some, and God says everybody else in this generation is going to die off from 20 years old and up, and that's where I turn to Frank and I go, hey, Frank, you and I were born in the month of Nisan. What day? Because I want to make sure that it was before Nisan 14, so I'm not included in the over 20. I want to be under 20, and so we go through that, and immediately following the whole discussion and the whole horrible incident of the spies, and even trying to go up and do it ourselves, now we have a list of the sacrifices, and it's a long list of what you do for unintentional sin. And here in this Torah portion, more so than any other, it really drives home the point of unintentional, and it's for the Yehudi, or the Israelite, the B'nai Israel, as well as the Ger, the stranger who sojourns among you. You're going to do this. Doesn't matter if you're born into this, you have to. If you've associated yourself with this, this is what you have to do. And then all of a sudden we go straight into a small snippet of, but if it's an intentional sin, high-handed against God, that soul, not that individual, that soul is to be cut off. And almost as if, meanwhile, back on the farm, the other day, this guy went out and he picked up sticks on Sabbath, and we didn't know what to do, so we brought it to Moshe. Moshe didn't know what to do either. What do you mean he didn't know what to do? The Torah had already been given. This is long after Sinai. We already know what to do with someone that violates Sabbath. Well, we didn't understand it in this account. Oh, in this situation. How does that situation deal with the spies and the different categories that we just read? And immediately after that, and you know what? Just because I like giving extra laws, anytime you guys screw up, I'm going to give you another mitzvah to do. And here's another law. I want you to put a blue cord in the corners of your clothing.
Four zitzit. Why? What?
What did I say? Yeah. Did I say something? Yeah, the four corners. Yeah. And so that's our Torah wrap up. That's what our Torah portion's all about.
That's a very thin burrito.
Yeah. So what do all these things have in common? And what's going on with these spies? Who told them to go in? Was it God? Because whenever I go to Deuteronomy, Devarim, it was the people's choice to do this. They approached Moses and said, hey, we'd like to do this. And Moses said, okay, it's a good idea. Let's go ahead and try that one. So whose idea is it? It sounds like in this Torah portion, God commanded it, but there's some nuances in the language about this. And then what's the correlation with everything else we're supposed to learn? Because in the end, Caleb and Joshua are the two that are allowed. Not even Moshe, not Aaron. Nobody else alive at this time is allowed to go in unless you're under 20. Only Caleb and Joshua get to enter into the land and get a portion assigned to them specifically. What tribe was Caleb and Joshua a part of?
We'll get to that in a bit.
We'll get to that. So what are we going to read, guys?
Well, I'm thinking we've got so much to cover, and why don't I just give us the final touches to it all? We'll do the final aliyah just to show where we're going to end up, and we can discuss everything before then.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sure. So if you're ready.
And ready.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Melech Ne'eman.
Amen. Numbers chapter 15, verse 27 through 41. Seventh aliyah, read from Chabad.org's English translation. But if an individual sins inadvertently, he shall offer up a she-goat in its first year as a sin offering. And the Cohen shall atone for the erring soul which sinned inadvertently before the Lord, so as to atone on his behalf, and it shall be forgiven him. One law shall apply to anyone who sins inadvertently, from the native born of the children of Israel and the proselyte who resides among them. But if a person should act high-handedly, whether he is a native born or a proselyte, he is blaspheming the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from its people. For he has scorned the word of the Lord and violated his commandment. That soul shall be utterly cut off, for its iniquity is upon it. When the children of Israel were in the desert, they found a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found him gathering wood presented him before Moses and Aaron, before the entire congregation. They put him under guard, since it was not specified what was to be done to him. The Lord said to Moses, "The man shall be put to death. The entire congregation shall pelt him with stones outside the camp." So the entire congregation took him outside the camp, and they pelted him with stones, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them that they shall make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and they shall affix a thread of sky blue wool on the fringe of each corner. This shall be fringes for you, and when you see it, you will remember all the commandments of the Lord to perform them. And you shall not wander after your hearts and after your eyes, after which you are going astray, so that you shall remember and perform all my commandments, and you shall be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God."
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah imet b'kayei olam nota b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Amelech Ne'eman.
Amen.
So it's kind of like a micro wrap up of the first part. You have people who are disobeying, and but for tzitzits, four-cornered garment. Do we even wear a four-cornered garment today?
Well, if I was to slice up my shirt right down the middle, right in my midsection, I should be able to get four corners out of this thing. I mean, it's been stitched up ever all the way up to the armpit, so.
True. So the four-cornered garment is still around, huh?
It's just disguised.
Okay. Obviously, I'm talking about the prayer shawl, okay, or as some of everybody does, is the talit katan. It's an actual four-cornered garment, so that you can keep the commandment, But why blue? Why this thread of blue? Anybody know?
I've read and seen some different things on that. There's things that I've got to say I truly do not understand. A lot of those stories that I've read and heard from anybody and everybody, all of them sound good. I have no qualms with any of them. But there's one obscure story that I recall reading, and I read it many years ago, and it really is about an individual, in like the 1400s time frame, that the style of the day was going away from the robes and the long garments for men and closer to suits, not quite like what we see today, but nonetheless, it was the four corners of a garment was going away and not in style. And so this individual, he goes in the Jewish community, and he goes and he has a suit made for himself, and he's asked, "Well, how come you're not wearing tzitzit?" And he said, "Well, I don't have four corners." I mean, the style of the day, there's no corners. There's not four corners, so I don't have it, and so I can't I can't fulfill a commandment, and it's not a negative commandment. So if I can't do it, I can't do it. What's the harm? And the end result came about as, why would you not want to find a way to do a positive commandment? There's no negative trait attached to this if you don't do it. There's not. It doesn't say, well, if you don't wear tzitzit, then you're gonna suffer boils in hell in the third level of hell. It's nothing like that. And for that matter, there's no great blessing that's attributed to this. Well, if you do wear it, I'm gonna make you rich and glorious and famous. It's not that. And even worse is, it's for you, so that when you see this, so you don't wear it on the, it's not, the point is not to wear it on the outside so that others see it, like a what would Jesus do bracelet. So someone would see that bracelet and say, oh, I noticed that bracelet. What is that bracelet? Let me tell you about Jesus. So you see the tzitzit, oh, let me tell you about God. No, it's not for others to see. Not that they can't, but the point is so that you see it, and when you see it, you'll be reminded of the commandments.
So it's a hook?
Yeah, it kind of is. And what's a hook?
Well, if I now
Not a
I
hook,
listened right.
not a hook, not a fish hook, but a hook.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
hook.
No, a
Yeah.
hook is it's because it's one of those things that there's really no rhyme or reason that God sets down. It's just the basis of the commandment. It's because God said so.
Yeah, and this one oddly enough does not classify for the rabbis as to being a hook. It's because a reason is given is so that when you see this, then you'll be reminded of the commandments. And there's all kinds of stories of one thing or another, and they're all great. The only point I wanted to bring out is that this is so that when the sons of Israel, when they wear this, they see it, they're going to be reminded of the commandments. And it's associated with this Torah portion. Now, I don't know that God did or did not have his hand in separating the portions, the parashah, the way they are, the parashot. But it is interesting that that commandment shows up at the end of everything else that's going on in this one. And it's for us individually, so that maybe we can be reminded of the commandments, so that whether they be intentional or unintentional, our keeping of or choosing not to keep positive and negative commandments. Recall, this is a positive commandment, but everything that's happened up until this point is for the sole purpose of us going into the land. The purpose of salvation was to bring us into the land. And a certain group of individuals, when they went in to spy out the land, in their mind, they saw that this can't be done, and we're going to find reasons why it can't be done. But with two individuals, it can be done, and we're going in to see how we're going to partition the land. Chris, where do you get that crazy stuff from? I don't know. Let's find out.
But it does say, going between our earlier discussion and what you said at the beginning, where the spies go in here, and what happens later, because this is, in Deuteronomy, it sounds like, oh, it was just Moses's idea, but it wasn't. It was the community's idea. Moses went along with it. And here it says, send out for yourself. In other words, not because God said, but because you guys are talking about it, you're thinking about it. Sure, go ahead. You don't need to, because I say you can take the land, but sure, go ahead. Go ahead. So
Yeah. So what Frank is talking about is when we get up to Deuteronomy in the first chapter, in the first chapter of Deuteronomy, go down to about Deuteronomy 1:20, chapter 1, verse 20, 21, 22, around that area, says, I said to you, you have come to the hill country. This is Moshe speaking to Israel. And remember, Deuteronomy is written more along the lines of a swan song. This is Moshe's words, wrapping up everything and giving direction for the future. And so Deuteronomy says, I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is about to give to us. He's talking historically. You remember the first time we were here? You remember that? And I told you, we've come up to the hill country of the Amorites, and we're about to go in to possess the land that God is about to give us, or is giving. It's constantly happening, giving us. Verse 21, behold, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it. As the Lord your God of your fathers has spoken to you, you shall neither fear nor be dismayed. So there's the commandment in Deuteronomy. Do not be afraid. Don't let your heart be troubled. God has already given this land to you. But what did you do? Verse 22, and all of you approached me and said, wait a minute, whoa. Hey, before we go up there, why don't we send up some guys ahead of us so they can search out the land and they can bring us back a report? And the whole reason of this, verse 22, is bring us back word on which route we shall go up and to what cities we're going to encounter. And verse 23 says, the matter pleased me, so I took 12 men from you, one from each tribe, and they turned and went up to the mountain. The mountain? Yeah. I'm not sure what most of the Christian Bibles, I think most of the Christian Bibles say mountainous range or mountains. It's plural, and not in Hebrew. This is singular. It's singular in our Torah portion in Numbers. Ha-her or ha-ar. It's the mountain. Same thing here. Went up to the mountain, which probably going to drive a conversation that we won't have time for tonight. But they went up to the mountain, and they came to the valley of Eshcol, and they spied it out, and they took some of the fruit of the land in their hands, and they brought it down to us, brought us back word, and they said, the land that the Lord our God is giving us, good land, but bad people, we can't do it. But our Torah portion makes it sound different. Our Torah portion makes it sound like it was God's idea. So we already see, what, a contradiction? Is there a contradiction here, Frank?
No, I don't believe so, because it's, again, I'm a very poor Hebrew student, so, but
We must have lost Frank for some reason, or we lost ourselves. But anyways,
And did we get cut off, or did Frank get cut off? Because
it's still saying live on my end, so I'm going to assume Frank just got cut off.
did we get cut off, or did Frank get cut off? All right, we're still live on you. Yeah, Jesse, we're still live on YouTube, so you go right ahead. We're still live on YouTube.
But yeah,
we're still live on YouTube.
We were delving into the spies, and yeah, that it is a different subject, at least when we look at it in Numbers. It feels like God is saying, send them out. Well, actually, no. He said, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send out for yourself men who will scout out the land of Canaan, which I am giving you to the children of Israel. You shall send one man from each father of his tribe. It almost sounds like God said, yeah, they're doing the right thing. Moses, you've got full approval to go do such a thing.
Well, yeah, because even in the Hebrew, and this is what's fun about going back and looking at some of the stuff in Hebrew, it says, Vedaber Adonai, and God spoke, El Moshe, to Moses, Lemor, Shlech lacha, send for yourself, anashim what is it, veyataru, et eretz. So it's really, in Hebrew it's saying, okay, Moses, send for yourself, not Moses, you send, but send for yourself spies, they may spy out the land of Canaan, which I give to the children of Israel. You shall send a man, and this is still God speaking. So, Moshe, you can send out spies, but you're going to do it this way. You're going to send one man from each, every one a tribe of their fathers. Each one is to be Hanasi, a prince, a leader of his own right within his tribe. From then on, we see how Moshe does this, and then we go in Numbers 17, verse 17. Moshe sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and Moshe said to them, now we're kind of going outside of, not in conflict with, but outside of what God commanded. God commanded this, and now we're going on with the rest of it, and that is Moshe said, get you up this way, or in other words, go up this way. It's almost like Moshe's got a map drawn out in the sand here. So I want you to go up this way from the south and go up into the hill country, and I want you to look at the land. What is it? What's the land look like? And the people who dwell there, what are they like? Are they strong or are they weak? Are they few or are they many? And back again to the land. What is the land that they dwell in? Is it a good land? Is it a bad land? What are the cities? What are the that they dwell in? Are they in camps or in strongholds? In other words, are they walled cities or are they open cities? And he comes back again. Notice Moshe's command is always starts out with the land. Tell me about the land and its inhabitants. But when they come back with their report, oh yeah, the land's good, but let me tell you about the inhabitants. So the report has changed from what Moshe wanted. So who commanded this? If I take Deuteronomy at face value and I take Numbers, Bamidbar, at face value, it really does sound like this is something that God allowed, not something that God commanded. But if I'm going to allow it, then I want you to take leaders of each of the tribes. The tribes are going to stand behind their leaders, and the tribes are going to be represented by leaders. Why is this so important? Remember at the opening I questioned, what tribe is this Caleb from and what tribe is Joshua from? Because we're always going to have this contention of these two tribes.
Well, the more you explain it, especially now that you've dived into who leads for the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Judah, I know I'm jumping a little ahead, but that does bring to mind, where have we seen other contention between these two? I mean, Caleb and Joshua are representatives of Judah and Ephraim, Ephraim being Joseph's firstborn. So, in essence, Joseph, since there is no tribe of Joseph in this case.
Ephraim's secondborn.
Yeah. Manasseh was the firstborn, but Ephraim got the blessing,
right? Yes,
of placing him first in a sense, yes. The crossing of the hands. Where have we heard this before? This seems oddly familiar. It feels like a coat of many colors situation.
Yes, it's a Vujade.
Vujade? Do you mean deja vu?
Yeah, Vujade is that feeling like I've never been here before. But deja vu. but a deja vu is, well, there's something about this that's familiar. I feel like I've been here before. Yes, we have been here before. You're right, Jesse. It's the coat of many colors, because as we go through, there's certain words that are used here in this Torah portion that are only used in one other place, or used to describe something else that has happened before this, and it all deals with these brothers. But the first case is Moses chose Joshua to go out and do something, and he specifically said, Joshua, I want you to pick leaders from every tribe to bring about people from each of these tribes to fight against someone. You remember that one? And Joshua went out and fought this battle, and in the meantime, Moshe is up on a hilltop, arms raised. When we win the battle, or when Moshe's arms is raised, we win the battle. When it gets tired and they drop, we start losing, and we go back and forth, up and down. And the end result,
doing calisthenics.
yeah, and the end result of Moshe doing jumping jacks, or what we call in the Army the side straddle hop. That's what it's called in the Army, side straddle hop. We don't call jumping jacks. Anyways, the end result is we didn't lose anybody in that battle, but yet the battle ebbed and flowed. It went back and forth until we finally conquered. So that's one instance where we see Joshua choosing and people being pulled out as representative of each tribe. And notice here the bad report comes back as the almost the crux of the bad report is Amalek. Amalek is in the south. We can't go up. Remember what they did to us. We won that one. Yeah, but it didn't go easy for us. That was the first time we actually had to do something. Oh. So that's really the heart of it, huh? That's the first time you actually had to go out and do something, because before then, God did everything for us. God conquered Egypt. God split the Red Sea. God killed Pharaoh. God gave us water. God gave us manna. God gave us meat. God gave us heat in the night and shade during the day. God gave us clothing that never wore out. God made sure that He was our healer, and we didn't succumb to any illnesses, sicknesses, nothing. So God's taking care of everything. But that battle with Amalek, that's the first time we actually had to be a part of this. And now we're going to have to go up and do it on our own. We can't do it. It's easier if we go back to Egypt.
So the children of Israel being like teenagers, like, oh, I don't want to do that. I mean, come on. The parents have been doing how much for them forever, and then, oh, it's a little too hard. Can't we do something else?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like any child. I mean, whether you're teaching your kid to water ski or to whatever it is that they've never faced before, and they're just a little bit apprehensive. Not just a little bit. It's like, no, I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And you, as the adult and the parent, is saying, really, I understand your fears, but it's not that difficult. Just go ahead and try. No, can't do it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. And the irrational fear takes over in that child's mind, while you, as the adult, are looking at this going, how do I break down that irrational fear? And we kind of see this with the spies that come back with a bad report, because a little bit further down in our Torah portion, the Torah specifically says, and they went out from Moshe, and they came into Moshe. Well, they've already started to give the report. What's this going out and coming in? And the sages say that's telling you right there that they went in to spy out the land with a defeatist attitude. We can't do this. And so they were looking for reasons why we can't do this. Whereas Caleb and Joshua were saying, we can do this. Not only can we do this, it's already done. We're looking at how we're portioning out the land. Notice the two differences there. Joshua and Caleb saying, this is already done. How do we divide up the spoils? Where the others are looking for reasons as to why we can't do it.
Optimism and pessimism are two forms of imagination, if you will. Optimism is the one that imagines what the future will hold, while pessimism is imagining how good the past was, regardless of whether it was bad or good.
or could you say that could you say that Joshua and Caleb had faith in God or what God had said to them, and the others did not?
hence the optimistic attitude and the pessimistic attitude. Joshua and Caleb were looking forward. They were looking at what their life will be in the future, while the rest of them had that pessimistic approach, looking into the past, looking as what was good then, not now.
Yeah, and so where do you get that idea? Oh, I'm glad you asked. That's a good question. Where do I get this from? Because I read the next book. And sometimes this is what I beat up on Jews, Christians, Messianics, everybody all the time is read Joshua, please. Please read Joshua, study Joshua, the book of Joshua, because it truly is fascinating. It tells us how we achieved the story of Torah. And in Joshua, Joshua himself, that one that is allowed to go into the land, he is at this weird place. It's got a funny name. It's got a funny name. He's standing in this place, and they're looking to divide up the land. Now they believe they can go in and conquer it, and he's looking to divide up the land, and he sends in spies again. Now, if I were there, I'd say, wait a minute, we've been here before, Joshua. Yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to give you a good report this time. We ain't doing another 40 years. This is not live, die, repeat thing for me. I'm not Tom Cruise and playing that movie. We're going forward. But this time it's a little bit different. We're getting a little bit different verbiage on how we're going to go and spy out the land, because this time with Joshua, what is the name of that place? Joshua is in the place of, it'll come to me in just a minute. Joshua, he sends them out to spy out the land in order to how we're going to divide it up for the tribes. And where was Joshua again? Shiloh! Remember that whole thing back with Jacob and his blessing over Judah? The scepter shall never depart. The scepter will not depart from Judah until Shiloh. Here we are in Shiloh, and we're dividing up the land. Maybe there's a correlation there. Maybe there's something there, but we're dividing up the land and how we're going to live in it, because we're already we're going in this time believing it is ours. God has given it to us. All we got to do is go in and take it this time.
Then there's also one thing we forgot to mention. In this portion, God tells the children of Israel and Moses, through Moses, let them keep the Passover. And they keep the Passover this time. This 1 year, first month after they're keeping the Passover, again as a memorial. But so that's also in this portion. So, and this is where we get the, we're unclean. How are we permitted or prevented from offering? And okay, well, there's Shmini, so there's another, So, but that's part of this portion also. We can't forget that. I'm sorry, I just railed everything. But,
No. You didn't disrail everything. This is a rather fascinating way to view all of this, and yeah, always a fear, as you put it in the chat for YouTube.
Yes, we had someone that made a comment that's
You're muted.
I always forget to unmute that button. So yeah, we had someone on YouTube that offered up something that's a really insightful thought, and I love that thought. Maybe the spies feared that settling the land, plowing and sowing, in other words, getting involved in the daily routine of actually living, whereas right now I'm not involved in the daily routine. The man comes from the sky, the water flows. I really don't have to work or worry about the future. But once I get into the land, now the manna is going to cease, and I have to go and get my water from a well, or better yet, dig my wells. I have to plow the fields. I have to take care of the crops. I have to take care of the animals. I'm going to get caught up in the mundaneness of living, that it will stray me, or it will divert me. It will distract me from the higher calling, which is the spiritual aspect of the daily service, whether it be the Mishkan or the temple, my daily service, the real reason why I'm called, my service to the Creator of the universe. And that's a interesting aspect. There is a tractate, and I really don't want to go off into Talmud too much, that talks about that a little bit, and it's just a different perspective. But that's our show. 2.5 opinions. It's a different perspective, a different opinion of looking at this. I take with the majority that rules that the spies were fearful that they were going to have to start doing things, and now I'm going to delve into my opinion on the ruling of the majority, and that is that not only we're going to have to start doing things on our own, but if I am going to be more involved in this, I can screw it up, and it's going to be too hard. It's just going to be too hard. After all, didn't God already destroy Pharaoh and his army? Didn't God already destroy all of Egypt? Wouldn't it be easier for us to go back and conquer Egypt than to go up here and conquer the Amalekite, the Amalek, and the others? And there's giants in the land. My goodness, there's giants. And the land of ours, let's go back to Egypt. That's an easy one for us to conquer. We can conquer that one. I know the language. I know the culture. I've got the money. I've got the currency. It's kind of like today.
No, it's too hot to go outside and cut the grass.
Well, exactly. It's like today. For any of us that have been to Israel, we look at it, and as soon as you get off and you're weeping, and then you go to the kotel and you weep and you pray, and you're just caught up in everything about being in Israel. I'm in Israel, and you look at the possibilities and the opportunities, and we need to move. We need to make Aliyah. I mean, after all, if you're a Messianic and you really believe that Yeshua is going to come on the Mount of Olives, why wouldn't you want to be there when it happens? Why wouldn't you want your children to be there? If you're a Jew, you're called to be there. I mean, there's too many things here that says, why are you not there? Why aren't you planning on going? Why are you still in America, in France, in Germany? My goodness, if you're a believer in Torah and you're trying to live a Torah observant life in the European countries, you're crazy for not trying to make Aliyah already. Why aren't you going? Well, you know what? The money conversion, and I'm kind of in debt as soon as I get out of debt here. And what job am I going to have? I can't even speak the language. And you know what? You got the whole Palestinian issue, and the Egyptians, and the Saudis, and the Assyrians. Oh, there's giants in the land. Oh, there's giants in the land. And besides that, I'm still caught up in my slavery mentality while I'm living in the comforts of America. I'm indebted. But I have comfort because someone gave me a job and I'm working at it. And I've got kids, and and we see the same thing. That's why for anybody that looks at and reads Torah as they and them, they did this and them did that, and you miss the purpose of living and reading and breathing Torah. It's about me. It's about me. So yes, I'm a slave to the American way, and I'm fearful of the giants that I would face if I moved to Israel. The giants being the political system, the socio-economic system. What am I going to do for a job? How can I take care of my kids? That's one of the excuses brought up here. God would rather me go up and I'm going to die, and then what's going to happen to my wife and kids when I'm fighting this battle? That's the very excuse that's used here. Wouldn't it be easier to go back? I mean, God already killed off the Egyptians. We can conquer that one easy. We don't have to work that hard for that one. But my purpose, my goal, and my promise, the covenant is not America, is not Germany, is not France, is not Italy. The covenant is the land that he promised Abraham. But there's giants, and I'm a slave. And we see ourselves in the same condition. And so, yeah, I go and visit Israel, and I look at all the promises and the glory. It's a beautiful land. It's a great land. Look at the grapes. Look at the produce. Look at the vegetables. Oh, and the climate. Oh, it's perfect. I tell you, I love the hill country. Oh, Tzvat. If there was no place in earth that I could live, it would have to be in Tzvat. I love Tzvat. And then I start looking at the giants. I can't afford it. I don't have a command of the language. I'm not this, and it's too hard. It's too difficult. Yeah, I'm just like these spies.
As a little note in the chat was just now said, so are you saying that God created the earth as a place for him to dwell with us, and that can only happen when we engage with the world?
Oh, wow. This is where I do kind of default with. There's times when I do totally agree with the apostolic writings, or what the Christians call the New Testament. Is we're called not to be a part of the world, but we must live in this world. So there's things that we have to deal with, but we are called to be a light unto the nation. So it's how we live and how we deal. So let me go into the chat room so I make sure I get it right. So are you to say that God created the earth as a place for him to dwell with us? Yes, absolutely. I agree with that statement. And that can happen only when we engage with the world. Only. You've got an active verb or an active word there. Only when I engage with the world. Let's see. I'm going to go back to Bereshit, and Bereshit, Adam was molded, and the spirit of life was breathed into him, and then he was placed in the garden. And what was his purpose in the garden? His purpose was to work the garden. So I'd have to agree with you. Yes.
Is that Jeremy?
Yes. Jesse, you can read Hebrew. What's the name there? I can barely see it. My eyes are so old. What's the name?
I recognize the name immediately.
Is it Jeremy?
No, it's not Jeremy. Ahuva Matityahu.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness. Ahuva is online, and she's
She's laying down the Torah tracks for you to follow.
I know she's in trouble. We're gonna have words.
Hey, I'm sorry about cutting out earlier. I don't know what happened to the connection. So,
all right, so let's get back to the Torah portion. I couldn't read the name because it's almost grayed out, and it's hard for me to read. But go ahead. So let's get back to the Torah portion with the spies. What's going on with the spies?
So let me ask the question.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
All right. He also says, what is the soil like? Is it fat or lean? Are there any trees in it or not? You shall be courageous and take the fruit of the land, that it was the season when the first grapes began to ripen. Trees? Any trees? That's kind of odd, isn't it? I mean, they can look and see there's trees, but any trees?
So what's the significance with trees? What's significant with a tree? There's two different teachings on this out of Talmud, and there's even yet a third teaching that comes more from a Kabbalistic view on just that verse and regarding the tree or trees. So Jesse, what'd you find? I asked Jesse to look at the Hebrew and make sure and confirm, is tree singular or is tree plural?
Let's see. Let's see.
So is it etzim?
It's eights. It's eights in this one.
So in the Torah,
is there? If you want to do a direct translation, it would be more like saying, "Is there a tree in it?" instead of are there any trees. But the
But this is the fun and the intriguing thing with this whole Torah portion. This is one that I think is more than any other. The way it's translated, whether it be in the JPS or in King Jimmy or a Christian Bible, there's certain words that are translated different than really what the Hebrew is. In one place, we're talking about sending up the spies, and Moshe gives them commands, but then it changes to he, an individual, and go up to the mountain, singular. But most Bibles and other translations continue with they, and when it comes to mountain, it calls it either mountains or the mountain range. But that's not what it says in Hebrew. This is another one of those places where it says, is there a tree? And the rabbis, the sages, key in on this, and they say, a tree? A tree? What tree? Just like whenever it says the mountain, they have a discussion. What mountain could this be? And none other than where Abraham offered up Isaac and the temple is going to be placed. And so here with the tree, or a tree, they look at it in twofold. And this is where we have an interesting dialogue and an ancient understanding. Trees and men are similar in Tanakh. Now, for the Messianics and Christians that might be listening or will listen to this, we have an episode in the Apostolic Writings where we have a blind man that comes up, and Jesus takes dirt, he spits in it, and he makes some mud out of it, and he puts it in the blind man's eyes, and he says, what do you see? And he says, I see, I want to be careful with how I do this because the Greek is a little bit different than even the English, but I see men as though they were trees walking about. Why would he call them trees? It's just blurry. He can't see correctly. And so Yeshua does something else, and now he sees them more clearly, and now they're men. But the interesting thing is he saw trees. And it comes back to this Torah portion again. The teaching is that individual leaders that are strong and their name will continue to live on, they are considered trees. And so men are considered trees in a poetic aspect. Poetic. We're using a poetic language here, not a literal language. And so one side of this is, are there men of renown that their reputation will continue on even after we come into this land? The Kabbalistic view is the tree of life there? Wow. There's more to this Torah portion than just the words written on the page? Yes.
Yeah, there's black fire and white fire.
So we're asking, the Torah is begging us to ask these questions. Is the tree of life there? Why is that important? Jesse, Frank, I really want to open this one up to you guys.
And that's what I wanted to go to. The note, this is from Rashi, does it have trees? Literally, does it have a tree, or does it have a worthy man who will protect them with his merit? A worthy man? Are we talking Mashiach? My question.
Be careful. Be careful. I'm gonna. I haven't delved it in that aspect, but it's still a worthy man. In other words, there's some merit to this individual that God will still preserve him. We see that Balaam still had some worth up until a point. We see that in the diaspora, the Babylonian captivity, we're going to see that even God is going to call the king of Assyria his Mashiach. So, and that's one of the only very few places where Ha-Mashiach, that phrase Ha-Mashiach, is used. One of them in all of Tanakh. There's only a couple of places, 2, maybe 3 places, where the word HaMashiach is used. One of them is specifically the king of Assyria. Really? This is not a godly man. Not in the slightest, but God's going to say, that's my Messiah? That's the Messiah? All right, so the point here is this. Is there someone that God still finds value and worth in that will still protect this people that we must fight against? In other words, there's still something about this individual that has a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of saving grace to them, that this battle will be extremely difficult. Or better yet, this individual is so renowned and such a good person, even though not Torah observant exactly, but a strong enough individual that we either must wait till this person dies off, or this fight could be pretty bloody.
Yeah, and
then, like I said, the Kabbalistic view is: does the tree of life dwell there? Is it inhabitable for the tree of life?
In all honesty, that's the one I would have gone with based on the way it's worded. Even though I wouldn't think of it in a Kabbalistic mindset, if the land is supposed to be the land of promise, and the whole mindset behind what we've seen in a lot of Torah is going back to what things were, trying to redeem oneself back to the original source, who wouldn't want to hope and pray that we find the tree of life there, whether it be metaphorical or actually physical? Is regardless, Moses is looking for that hope of returning back. I can easily see that one.
Yeah, and so we did have another comment. Don asked in the room an intriguing question, and this is one of the tough ones sometimes, of just reading a question without understanding the rest of what goes behind it. But the question is, how long have they been? I'm sorry. How is the daily living much different from what they did in Egypt for 200 years? And one side of me says, oh, the daily living of being a slave, because what we've been talking about here on 2.5 Opinions, and I think in 1 or 2 other Lamb radio shows, they've been kind of dealing with the same issue, is getting rid of that slave mentality. Everything's given to you. When you're a slave, you don't have to worry about waking yourself up. Someone's going to wake you up. You don't have to worry about what job you have. Someone's going to give you a job. You don't have to worry about your food, because someone's going to give you the food. The problem is you don't have a choice. And here we are out in Bamidbar, in the wilderness, and sometimes we lose sight and don't understand in the Bamidbar, in the wilderness in itself, even the Hebrew word gives us the impression that the wilderness does not sustain life. There is no life in the wilderness, especially human form. You can't live in the wilderness. The wilderness is and this is Chris's impression of trying to convey what the Hebrew is trying to say. The wilderness is Sheol. The wilderness is death. It's you can be alive here, but you're not really living, and you're not really dead. You're like in the netherworld.
Well, the only reason they exist is because of the grace of God.
And that's just it. Is okay. So I'm not planting. I'm not plowing. I'm not harvesting. Why? Well, because even if you did, it wouldn't grow. So God provides the food. And I'm not digging a well, and I'm not going to the river. Why? Because God has provided the water for me. And, the heat is unbearable. I'll set up a tent. Don't worry about it. I got a cloud that will cover you as well. Well, at night, it's freezing cold. The temperature drops so much. Don't worry about it. I'm going to provide not only light, but warmth for you. And we continue on with the 10 things that God provides for us while we're in the wilderness. So how is the daily life in the wilderness different from being a slave in Egypt? From a worldly point of view, there is no difference. from a spiritual point of view, much, much in every way. I am free physically to enjoy and delve into the spiritual aspects and the purpose of my being. I am no longer encumbered by the weights of the mundane, the common, the vanity of the world. I don't have to worry about riches. I don't have to worry about food. I don't have to worry about my children. I don't have to worry about sickness and disease. I don't have to worry about my clothes, my shoes. So many things I don't have to worry about, so that I can focus solely on God and God alone, and raising my family to focus on God and to learn from the very source itself. So, Don, that's a great question. I love that. There really is that dichotomy. And sometimes we see the difference between good and evil is a knife's edge, a razor's edge. Sometimes that difference between good and evil is so thin. And I think that's what Adam faced. It wasn't a clear cut. This is good, this is evil, this is light, this is darkness. I can tell the difference between light and darkness. I think with Adam, it's a little bit different. It was that knife's edge. This is good, but can it be used for evil type of aspect? That's different question, or different thought process that takes us way off our Torah portion. So, Frank, Jesse, get us back on track.
Let me go back to what I wanted to talk about, if it's okay. 38. Speak to the children of Israel. You shall say to them that they shall make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and they shall affix a thread of sky blue on the fringe of each corner. Okay, out of all the stuff we've already listed and all the stuff that's going on, what is this about these tzitzits, these fringes, and why 4 of them? What does that have to do with anything that is here in this portion?
And that's a good question, and we're really jumping way far ahead, but we are kind of running out of time, so maybe we need to start getting there. Like I said, we've sent in spies. It is the opinion of the sages, and I agree with them on this. Not like my opinion matters with the sages, but
or my opinion, really. No.
Yeah, but I kind of agree with them. Is that 10 of those spies went in with a thought in mind. They were already shaded against going in. They didn't really want to go in because of the fear of actually having to start to do things on their own. The hint of that is the battle with Amalek to begin with. Is that was the first time they actually really had to go out and battle. Now they're told go in and conquer. Whoa! That would scare the I got to be careful with my language. My army language is going to come through. That would scare the
scare the boogers out of you.
Yeah, that would scare the pantaloons off of me. But yet here they are, and they're having to deal with that, and they're looking for the scary things, and they're finding them, because you know what? Generally, when we look for something, we find it. If I'm looking for the bad in somebody, I'm going to find something bad in somebody. And so they do that. And then we come back and we deal with those that intentionally wanted to muddy the waters. They come back with a bad report, and they're going back to their tents, and they've got their clans gathered around, and they're continuing with, and they're continuing being that source of contention. The source, remember that, the source. The spies with the evil report, just like Joseph, he was the source of bad news. And they're not satisfied with just telling it. They want to make sure everybody agrees and believes with their source that this is not a good idea. Now maybe they wanted God to go ahead and do it for them. Maybe they just wanted to go back to Egypt. Maybe they were just so caught up, like our Torah portion says. They were inhabited. They were totally filled with fear of, I can't do this. because when we see Joshua and Caleb, they're constantly coming back and saying, don't worry about it. God's got your back. God's got this. You just got to move. But they're still so caught up in fear. Have you ever been in that situation where you're so fearful you can't even move, you can't speak, you can't do anything? Have you found yourself in that spot, whether it be fear of life or fear of anything else, where you're just frozen in that fear in that moment, even if it's for a second?
Yep.
It happened to me on a hilltop in Afghanistan, coming under fire. It couldn't have been more than 10 seconds, but nonetheless, I froze, and a flood of thoughts came through my mind. And it was all about family and my wife and my sons and so many things. I was consumed with thinking about my wife and my sons, that I couldn't move.
And it seemed like it was 1,000 years, right?
Oh, it seemed like it was an eternity, yes.
Yeah.
But then came back into it and did my job. These guys are consumed with this, and they can't see a way out, and they come back with a bad report. If I can't see a way out, then you can't, because I am a Nasi. I'm a prince. I'm a leader. If I can't see a way out, you being lesser than me, you can't. Surely you can't see a way out. You must agree with my opinion on this. And so it feeds. And what we're seeing is that still goes against God. And not only that, you're feeding fear to the people that had no fear to begin with. Now you are entrapping them.
So
you chose to, because you knew better, because you were a leader. You knew better. But these people, they don't. That we could say that they should have known better, but nonetheless, they're still following their leaders.
Why
Go
do
ahead.
why do I get the odd feeling that sounds like you're putting a stumbling block in front of a blind man doing that? It just brings to that mind that they are trusting their leaders. A blind man trusts someone saying there's nothing in the way. Stumbling block in front of a blind man when the bad report is, hey, guess what? We can't do this.
Yeah, these are the sons of the giants. Oh my gosh, the giants. We didn't ask how did they survive the ark, but let's pretend that they did, or we had other stories on that one. But nonetheless, giants. And look at the fruit that they grow. Oh my goodness, they must be giants if they're consuming that.
So there's a correlation between the 10 that give a bad report and the 10 brothers that basically tricked their father into saying, hey, your son is dead.
Yes.
Well, this is going into that part.
Yeah, Jesse, do you have a good way to tie those two together, the spies and the brothers and Joseph?
Well,
because we still got to get to answer Frank's question here about the Techelet, the blue cord.
Well, then I'll try to wrap it up as fast as I can, and if I go too slow, just jump in and help out. But if you take into consideration, I had mentioned earlier that this entire Torah portion sounds very similar to a situation that we've had in the past with the Code of Many Colors with a bad report. Well, it does have very many similarities because we've got 12 tribes, we've got a bad report, we've got spying, we've got multiple different formats addressed very similar to this in the story of the brothers selling Joseph into slavery. Because first and foremost, Joseph gives bad reports about his brothers to their dad. Causes anger, causes frustration, causes strife between brothers. You have the focus of the brothers trying to kill Joseph. Well, it was Judah who was the one who suggested, hey, let's not kill him. Let's throw him in the pit. We'll tell Dad that a wolf devoured him. Let's tell Israel that the land will devour us. But as we proceed onward, there's a very interesting tie-in because the two people who are the main focus of the story about selling Joseph into slavery is Joseph and Judah. And if you are looking for the correlations, let's go over to where we see Joseph and Judah in our current Torah portion. As we've said before, Joshua, son of Nun, of the tribe of Ephraim, and Ephraim is from Joseph. Caleb, of the tribe of Judah. In a roundabout way, we have a very interesting correlation here, but what is happening, and at least of what I've seen, and I'm trying to shorten this, so if I'm doing a bad job in explaining it, hopefully we can have some help here later on. But if you look at it, in a sense, Joseph and Judah had sinned to some degree. Joseph, because I'm going to tell father about all the bad things you're doing, none of the good things. Sure, you might be my brothers and you might have some good attributes, but I'm going to, just like the spies, I'm going to give our father a bad report about you. You might have some good in you, and I should be focusing on the good. You are my brother, but I'm going to tell him the bad. And then you have Judah, who wants to lie to their father and sell their brother, which is a bad sin in among itself, if you think on it. So,
but is it a worse sin than wanting to kill your brother or to sell him?
Well, in a roundabout way, you did kill him.
Well, let's be careful. Let's be careful, because there's a lot of nuances here, and we're looking at it from a certain perspective, and that is the perspective of where are the correlations with this, and are the correlations valid enough to come to the conclusion? And I want to give away the answer real quick. The conclusion is in Ezekiel 37. God tells Ezekiel, take a stick and write on it Judah, and take a stick and write on it Ephraim, and put them together in your hand. And the promise is that all of Israel will come back. All of Israel will be saved and come back into the land, and God will heal the land, heal their sickness, and he will be their God once again. That's the promise. Where was the first time that we saw Ephraim and Judah working together for the land? And it's
here,
this core portion right here. And this is the premise for what Ezekiel says. So for those of you out there that have 1 house, 2 house, 5 house, 20 houses,
don't forget the outhouse
or anything. Yeah, Frank will be out in the outhouse. But any version or view of what Ezekiel is saying, that's fine. I don't want to argue against it. The premise for Ephraim and Judah is this Torah portion. And why is that important? Because of what Jesse is saying. When we go back to what did Joseph do? He constantly gave a bad report, a daba, and that it's the exact same word. There's only a couple places, 2 places really, where that word is used for an evil report in this Torah portion and with what Joseph did. And when Torah uses a specific word that's a little obscure, that's not used anyplace else, and only uses it 1 or 2 other places, you must look at what's the connection between this story and that story. And this is one of those places. We also see other things here. What they saw. Go and give a report. Shlach. What did Jacob tell Joseph? Go down and shlach your brothers. So we have shlach there. We have see what they're doing and come back and give me a report. We have the word devour. The land devours its inhabitants. And what do we see when the brothers, after selling Joseph, they come back to Jacob and said, hey, is this your brother? Is this your son's coat? We don't know. Duh. We're just stupid. And poor Jacob looks at it and he sees it stripped to shreds and is dunked into blood. And he says, oh my goodness, wild beasts have devoured my son. Stop there. Pause. The spies made an assumption based on some imaginary thought that the land devours its inhabitants, just as Jacob jumped to a conclusion based on something that's going on in his mind. It must have been a wild beast that devoured my son. So we see that same idea, the same thought process going in Jacob's mind as going in the spy's mind. Is their thought process is running rampant with them. Their fear of the worst is running rampant with them, and they come to a conclusion. And as it goes on, we see a lot of things. But what's really crazy is when we get to Joseph finally arises as a leader of the group. Remember, Joseph was not the firstborn, so he was not the leader. Reuben lost that right to be a leader, and so we see at the well of doing away with Joseph. This is where Judah really comes to arise as a leader, because they go with what Judah says. And if you remember in that Torah portion, meanwhile back in the farm, Judah has a wife and has two sons, and one son marries this person, and then he dies, and another son marries that same person, and he dies, and we've got the whole black widow thing. And the end result is, well, Joseph says, well, she's more righteous than I am. What in the world does that have to do with anything? Now we come back to the Joseph story. What was that whole sidebar topic all about? Why did we even go there? Because it's pointing out Joseph is rectifying the sin in his own life. He's correcting. Judah. Judah is correcting the sin in his own life. Joseph now. Where's Joseph's correction? We at times when we're reading Torah, not at times, just throughout all of Torah, we must understand that what I do has ramifications on everyone else around me. And it has even greater ramifications, that if I don't correct the sin in my life, then my sons, it's not that they inherit that sin, it's not that they inherit a curse. That again, it's Christianity that teaches you some interesting things about that. It's that those traits, if I don't correct them, my sons learn those traits.
I've seen it even out of my younger brothers when watching me and Josh grow up.
Yeah, whenever I speak to you and when I speak to my other sons, it's like, oh my goodness, that's my dad talking. That's not me. Those weren't even my words coming out. That's dad talking. And I'm sure he said,
yeah, but do you have your belt all the way up past your waist?
Yeah, but it's that thing is, if I don't correct it in my own life and my own habits and my lifestyle, then I'm passing that learned trait to my sons, and they will be affected one way or the other from it. And so we see that Judah makes his correction, but how do we know it was corrected? His great-grandson says, you know what? I don't care what you guys say. We're doing it the right way. What about Joseph? Joseph's sin was giving a bad report, constantly giving a bad report. The Hebrew is he was constantly ratting out his brothers. And here we see Joseph's great-grandson saying, we ain't doing bad reports no mo. Ain't happening.
Right.
We're going forward with the truth. We're sticking with the truth. Yes, it might look bad, but you know what God said.
Right. So why 4 tzitzits?
So for the 4 tzitzit, it could be as simple as because the 4 corners of the garment. Could be that simple. Okay. And after all, the corners of the garment are considered wings. And how many wings do the seraphim have? They have 4, 6 wings, 2 wings. But regardless how many seraphim surround the throne of God, there's 4. And they're considered flying or terrestrial instruments of the Most High. And surrounding us, we have 4 corners on our garment. Is it to be reminiscent of I'm created in the image of God? Very possible. But there is one other aspect, and Frank, I'm just going to pause and let you bring this forward, because I find this fascinating. I find it interesting, and I can't find anything wrong with it. But yeah, go ahead and bring it forward.
Right. The aspect that at this juncture, at this moment, there are 4 witnesses that are for God versus the 10 that are not for God. Now, I know that goes from 12 spies to there's 14, of course. There's Moses, there's Aaron, there's Joshua, there's Caleb. And from what I can see, they're juxtaposed here in this portion to show that follow these 4. They're the ones who are giving you the correct information, the correct way to do things. They're the ones who will take Israel forward. The report of the 10 that are reporting the bad, that's not the way forward. The way forward is to look at these 4 individuals and follow them. Therefore, look at the fringes, and it will remind you of the laws, of the commandments, of the statutes, the ordinances.
Yeah, sometimes it can be that simple of I'm caught with a dilemma. I have to make a decision, and I really don't know which way to go. Do I do this or do I do that? And there's been times where I've been faced with that very thing, and I think on those esteemed individuals in my life, those that have influenced me the most. What would Frank do in this situation? What would Jesse do in this situation? And I try to go through what would they do, and I see, but it's not so much what would they do. What would that personality do? What would that aspect? What would this person that's chasing God do? So I like what you're bringing forth there. As we see Moshe, we see Aaron, we see Joshua, we see Caleb that stood for God and the commandments, regardless of what the majority said, what the majority wanted to do. And I like that. I've had this question in the past, and it's been a couple of years, but it came up again today on our show. Someone in the chat room asked the question: can a woman wear tzitzit? And where this really comes from is from Messianics, because there are some women out there that want to wear a talit. Now, the talit, the whole purpose of the talit, truly, the purpose of the talit is to put tzitzit on it. The talit without tzitzit is just a scarf. Wear a scarf. But the purpose of the talit is a garment that you can wear that has tzitzit on it, and the talit really comes from the talit katan, which is the little talit. Talit katan we don't see so much in the Messianic movement, but it's very prominent in Judaism and the Jewish society, and it's really a what would you call it? Like a poncho or a serape, or what would you call it, Frank?
It's a mini poncho because
it's just a rectangular garment that has a hole in the middle, and you wear it over your T-shirt or over your shirt. And again, the whole purpose of the talit katan is a place to put your tzitzit. Going back to what I said earlier, the individual that said, "I don't have 4 corners, so I can't wear the tzitzit, so therefore I don't have to." The talit katan was created so that you can. The talit gadol, the prayer shawl itself, again, is just a greater way of beautifying the commandment. Judaism wants to beautify commandments. You won't find anything in all of Torah that tells you to have a talit gadol. You can interpret, you can imply, you can come up with all kinds of things, whether it be the apostolic writings or in Tanakh, but nonetheless, you're not going to find a direct derivative of wearing a talit gadol or a talit katan. These are ways to do the commandment. And so the question came up to me. It must have been. It must have. Say, Frank.
Okay, no, you froze up for a second. You were talking about talit katan.
Yeah. The question came to me years ago. It must have been 7-10 years ago. Someone asked, and it was a female, was asking, well, can women wear the talit? Can women wear tzitzit? And I thought it was intriguing. And I had to go back and look at, all right, why would you want to? Not saying you can't. Why would you want to? Well, because I want to do the commandments. It's in the Torah to have tzitzit, so I want to do the commandments. I said, okay, so let's look at the commandment. The commandment is for Bnei Israel, sons, male. It's masculine. Everything about it is masculine here. So again, since the commandment is given to the males, well, does that mean every time that it's Bnei Israel? And we go into that conversation, and we're trying to discover, is there anything wrong? Is it okay? Can it happen? Can it not happen? Etc. The end result is I found a rabbi that explained it this way, and he wasn't talking about this specifically, but it did delve into it because this is a hot topic within the Jewish society, especially in Israel, of women taking on a lot of the commandments that were not prescribed for them. And this rabbi put it in this aspect, is that because of our condition, God is like the great healer. You remember back in Exodus 4:22? Was it I'm sorry, 12? Gosh, I'm going to forget. Where I can't believe I'm forgetting where that was. Um, anyways, it's dealing with when we come to the waters of Meribah, the waters of bitterness. God said that I won't place any of these plagues upon you, because I am the Lord that is your healer. Your healer. Um, I remember being in the charismatic crowd in Christianity, and they called it Jehovah Rapha. Well, they were trying. They were trying to pronounce it in the Hebrew, but I'm the God that heals you. And so we look at that as God as the great physician, and He's prescribing medicines for you. And here, as a result of sin, let me give you a medicine to keep you from going back into that sin. That medicine is the tzitzit. The commandment is to wear the tzitzit. How it's done, where it's done, how many knots, no knots, whatever. Is it the blood of a snail? Is it whatever it may be that brings about the techelet? Regardless of all that, the question is still, can a woman wear tzitzit? That's the heart of the question. Can a woman wear tzitzit? If I could speak, forgive me, if I could speak in the place of Aaron and Moshe, I would think they would say, why? Why would you want to? This is a medicine from the great healer. This is a medicine for men. Men are afflicted with this issue, therefore they must do this to keep them from going this trail. Women, you don't need it. It's not that you can't. It's not that you're forbidden. You don't need this. Your approach, you're not understanding Torah and the things that's going on here. You don't need this. Yeah, if you want to, go right ahead. I don't care, but it serves no purpose for you. But, woman, if you're doing this so that you can look religious, if you're doing this so that you can look like you're doing something important, if you're doing this so that you can be perceived by others, then you do not understand the first thing about tzitzit, and tzitzit is so that you, the individual, will see it, not that others will see it. This isn't a "what would Jesus do" bracelet on your arm. This is for you to see, not for others to see. This is for you to see and remind you of the commandments. Therein lies the difference. Are you doing this for others to see you? Then if you're a man or a woman, you're not keeping the commandment. Flat out, you're not keeping it. Just because you're wearing it, oh, great. That's nice. But you're doing it for others to see it. Are you wearing it for yourself because of your connection and your relationship with Hashem, to keep His commandments, which goes right back to our Torah portion, is, are you wearing a garment that does not have four corners, even though you know you should be? Are you neglecting this commandment? Or are you finding a way to keep the commandment regardless of the societal norms of, sorry, my shirt doesn't have four corners, so I can't wear it. Oh, well, I'm going to put it on my belt loops. Well, again, your pants don't have four corners either, so are you really keeping it that way? Well, yes, but I'm doing it so that others can see how Jewish I am? Really? Again, we're back in that whole conundrum of, you're doing it for someone else to see it, you're not doing it for you to see it.
Well, I think my 3XL size pants probably have four corners.
Yeah, but
I can't see the four corners. You know.
It's that thing, and I don't want to beat up on Messianics that wear tzitzit on their belt loops. That's nice, but
right.
Again, are you really doing this for you, or are you doing it so that others can see how holy
right.
you are?
Right.
And I dare say, if you're going to wear it on your belt loops, make a talit katan. My wife made talit katans for me and the kids for years until we were able to afford to buy talit katans.
Yeah.
And even with that, when I'm in certain circles and businesses and such, guess what? I tuck my tzitzit in.
Yeah.
Because it's not for show.
Right.
The tzitzit from this commandment and this Torah portion is for me and my relationship with God.
Yep.
It's for me to remember, not for me to brag. Not a witnessing tool. No, the witnessing tool is that I'm doing God's commandments. That's what God said all along, is the nations will see that you're doing Torah, and they will understand that is your wisdom, and then they will come. It's not that they will see your Jesus bumper sticker, or what would Jesus do bracelet, or my kids.
Well, why don't I get a fish tattooed on my arm? So
It's not all those things. No. How are you living Torah is what the nations will see.
Right.
Well, what religion are you? Yeah, I've just been watching you, and I noticed you do these things, and you're helpful, and you work this, and you give to that, and you're doing a lot of things here, and I don't get it because I don't see you in church, and I don't. What do you believe? Because I'm really intrigued now. Oh, come on in. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah. You remember your story about the pizza and you know what they put on it and how to they did that to me yesterday for our team building thing for bowling, and
I thought I saw you there. I was there at the other end. I thought I saw you, and I turned around and tried to come find you, and you were gone. But yeah, we were there. Anyways,
okay.
We're getting off
right.
the
show. Anyway, the one guy says, "Well, you're not having any pizza." I said, "I don't eat pork." Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I'll go get something else. That's no big deal." So I didn't say anything unless they asked me why. And then, I just said, it's not a big deal. I'll go get something else to eat. That's fine. Even though it was free, I'm like, yeah, still dog crap. Sorry. All right. How do we wrap this up? Because we're way over time.
Well, let's see. We talked over 3 different topics all at once today.
But we never talked about this guy picking up sticks. Do we even want to? Is it too late? Do we want to even indulge in that? Because I tried to set it up as, here's the spies, and we've got a couple things going on with that, and we've got those that instigated it. Even though God said go in and conquer the land, they went in to find bad reasons about the land. Don't conquer the land. They fed that information to unwilling participants that really weren't sure. Jesse, you brought up the whole idea. It's kind of like putting a stumbling block before the blind. by telling them an evil report about the land. Oh, well, I guess I didn't know. Then let's not do that. And then we rise up against Moshe. Certain people are killed in the plague. That plague happens to be Dever, the same plague that was placed on the Egyptians, their cattle, that God warned them, that God warned Pharaoh specifically. I could have placed this on you as well, but I didn't. I just did it on the cattle. And why? Because my name will be glorified in you, and the whole world will understand and know my name because of you, Pharaoh, and all of Israel will know my name because of, and then we come on into, so if you sin inadvertently, then here's the sacrifices for that, but it's only inadvertent, and we go into this long list that almost bores us to death, and then we come into, but if you sin on purpose, then your soul is cut off. And then
Okay,
it's like,
Audrey the Giant.
yeah, it's like a hard period. Your soul is cut off, and there's a hard period there. Yeah, we're going back to the Princess Bride, and there's a hard period there. It's almost like if you could make that period larger, it would be large. And then we go off into, oh, meanwhile, there's this guy that was picking up sticks on Sabbath, and a bunch of people went out and they brought him into Moshe and Aaron because they really didn't know what to do with this. And Moshe and Aaron, they didn't really know what to do either, so they asked God, and God said, stone him. Oh, what a vengeful, horrible, hateful God we serve, huh? Well, no, wait a minute.
But if, hold on. If that's the case, then why point it out? Because I'm pretty sure we had what to do about intentional and unintentional sin all the way in Leviticus. Why are we drawing these conclusions of they would not know what to do with this guy here and now? What is it about this guy? I think we've discussed it once before.
But isn't that interesting? Why, after the spies and everything that's going on with all of Israel, remember, God is concerned with not just all of Israel, but all of the world. But Israel is going to be his example for the rest of the world. And we go from the spies straight into unintentional and intentional sin. And from that, we go straight into, oh, here's an example of intentional, high-handed sin against God, as some people have put it, and I think I agree with them. In the apostolic writings of the New Testament, they talk about this sin against the Holy Spirit. I think that's what this individual is.
So what was the intent of the spies then, based on that fact?
Well, we have those that intentionally went in to spy out the land to give an evil report saying we can't do it. Here is the living example after the fact. And so we have here with this person, this individual, he's going out gathering sticks on Shabbat. Now, the law is already given. Back in Exodus, it's reiterated again and expounded upon. It's grown for how we deal with what is work, how is work. I got to be careful on how I put that, but nonetheless, it's for Shabbat, it's the death penalty. But then in Leviticus, Vayikra, we get, how do you deal with death penalty? You must have a witness, no, 2 or 3 witnesses, and the 2 or 3 witnesses must have confronted the individual and warned them, told them what they were doing wrong, told them what the ramifications were, and if the person still continues, then they're to bring him to the higher court. In this case, the higher court is Moses and Aaron. Now, what I'm confounded with is, why did Moses say, I don't know what to do in this case? Moses, you're the lawgiver. You already told us. You violate the Sabbath, you're to die. What do you mean you don't know what to do with this case? Because the case is not about violating the Sabbath. The case is about, what do you do with an individual that was there and present when the law was given, that fully understands and recognizes, that is living in the blessings of Hashem, and when he chooses to violate the laws of Hashem, is approached by others in the community and is warned by others in the community? And he continues to say, yes, I acknowledge that you believe in God. I acknowledge that God gave out these laws. I acknowledge what the Shabbat is and how to break it. And I not only all of that, I acknowledge that the violation of Shabbat is death. But I'm telling you right now, I don't believe none of that. I don't subscribe to it. I don't. That's all. It's all hooey. It's not part of me. But I'm going to continue to live in the community and eat the manna, drink the water. I'm going to take in all the blessings that everybody else gets.
I don't
But
know
I'm
this.
going to deny God. I'm going to refute His commandments. I'm going to reject your judgments. That's why they brought him to Moshe. We never even heard of this one. How do we deal with this? Someone that acknowledges but still rejects and calls it all poo-poo.
I think Moses dealt with something of its equivalency, but only with someone outside of the camp. A certain Pharaoh, I believe.
Yeah.
That's a good
So we're
point.
seeing Pharaoh within the camp. That's a good catch there, Jesse. Now we've got Pharaoh within the camp. Now what do we do with this guy? This guy's been saved. He went through the waters of salvation. He's come to the mountain. He's received the Torah, and he still rejects it. Now what do we do? And God says, take him outside of the camp and stone him.
Ooh. Yep.
That's why this is so important. It has nothing to do with picking up sticks on Shabbat. It has everything to do with you were aware of it. You acknowledged it. You received the blessings of it. You're living under the covering of it, and you still openly reject it within those that believe it and accept it. Now what do we do with you?
Well,
And
isn't
that
there
is the worst of the spies right there. That is the very worst of them. Even though you acknowledge, you accept, and you're a leader. You're a leader. You're a Nisi. You're a prince. And you're going to come back and you're going to try to lead others away? Oh, there's no hope for you. The only thing that's left for you is the plague. The only thing that's left for you is stoning.
Well, there's also a passage, I forget what book it's in, probably Deuteronomy, where it says that those that say, I will have security in my heart, but yet do not follow, they will be destroyed also. And it's about putting on a false face, a false sense of who you are and what you actually believe, and as you said, you're leading other people astray. So, there's only one consequence, only one thing that can be done. Bye-bye. So
Remove the soul from the mortal shell, so at least the soul can be saved.
Yeah, and I think that's almost what you're quoting is really from the sages, Jesse. But Paul puts it in a different way: is turn them over. It's in Corinthians, which is crazy enough how Corinthians made it into the Bible, because that's the most screwed up congregation that ever was, most debased, hedonistic, disgusting congregation that ever was. But nonetheless, you've got a man that's sleeping with his father's wife and incest and craziness. And so Paul tells him, turn his body over to the Satan, so that his soul may be preserved. And the whole idea is just that, is that there is nothing can help this individual. Within Judaism, and I know this is going to rack a lot of people's minds, and especially Christian and Messianics, within Judaism, the aspect is that this individual for Shabbat, the only that's violating Shabbat in this manner and is denouncing God in every way, the only thing that can atone for this individual's sin is his own life, his own blood. And that's why murder, first-degree murder, is so abhorrent. There is no sacrifice that can atone for first-degree murder. The only thing that can atone for that is the blood of the individual that committed that sin. And I don't want to rub against the Christian mindset of Messianics. I'm just presenting the Jewish aspect and the Jewish approach of it. Is that it is the only way to preserve the soul is that the body must be destroyed.
Right. So, I think we got everything, didn't we?
Oh, that plus 2 or 3 other things.
Yeah, we wound up hitting a lot of topics all in one go.
Yeah. But so in the end, just look at your seat, and that'll save you.
Yeah, no. The seats to remind you. And for the person that asked the question about women wearing tzitzit, that person posted something about, so go get stoned, and I'm still laughing. I mean, growing up in California and Colorado, and yeah, I would like to think she's meaning it the way that I'm taking it, but but at the same time, I don't want to take it wrong. But that is funny. Yeah, you can't deal with God and can't deal with reality, and then go get stoned.
Yeah. Everybody must get stoned.
Yeah, and that's what I love is Mark loves Zimmerman, not Zimmerman,
Dylan.
yeah, Dylan. Well, that's his birth name is Zimmerman. Yeah. So Mark loves Bob Dylan, and he and I have an affinity, and we share different thoughts and prospects on Bob Dylan. And yeah, that one song is everybody must get stoned. They stone you in your morning, they stone you when you go to school, and so everybody must get stoned. And yeah. Okay, so if you got nothing else out of tonight's Torah portion, get stoned. What? Oh,
If we're telling people to get stoned, yet we got problems.
Really. So, Jesse, final words.
Final words. This Torah portion is very, very much about intent. Intent of the heart, intent of the mind. What you seek in life, optimism, pessimism. It's the body goes where the heart and mind intend it to go. That's the best brief synopsis I can give. Because whether for good or for ill, it is your heart, it is your intent, it is your mind that guides you first before you act.
Okay. All right. Chris, last word? No? Okay. Because I saw the light from behind you, and I figured you were like teleporting out or something. Something hit the curtain, and then it blacked you out completely. So it's like,
the curtain was parting, and that was the light. No, I'm not going to go there. So the
holy Elvis angels came down to take him away.
That's right. Yeah. So Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.
This has been 2.5 Opinions. We thank you for joining us. Frank, you want to do a synopsis or?
No, everything's been said. Has already been said. Other than we enjoyed having you guys here. Please, more stuff in the chat room. Ask more questions. We love that. The heat throat. Shavua tov. Laila tov. Take care. Enjoy your Sabbath. What's left.
We hope to see you next time.
Yep. Where we're going to give you our opinions again. So,
I'm Yishai.
I'm Frank, and not the Rebbe's already signed off. So, take care. Shavua tov.